The Monday, November 4th, 2024 regular meeting of the Gardner City Council will come to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilor Brooks.
Present.
Councilor Craig Cormier.
Present.
Councilor General Lowers. Councilor Harder.
Present.
Councilor Heath.
Present.
Councilor Hagelin.
Present.
Councilor Mack.
Present.
Councilor Thibault Munoz.
Present.
Councilor Tassoni.
Present.
Councilor Tyros.
Present.
And President Kuzinskis.
Present. Please rise to recite the opening prayer and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Almighty God, we thank thee for bringing us together this evening. Inspire us to worthy deeds and sound decisions, and direct us towards the attainment of good city government. We pray thee to bless and protect all the people of our city, and to so guide and inspire us that we may deliberate in unity and harmony. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Announcement of open meeting recordings. Any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium subject to reasonable requirements of the chair as to the number, placement, and operation of equipment used so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. Any person intending to make such recording shall notify the chair forthwith. All documents and exhibits used or referenced at the meeting must be submitted in duplicate to the chair as they become part of the meeting minutes, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 20. Is anyone here recording tonight's meeting? There are no reading of minutes of prior meetings. Public hearings. Item 11417, a petition by National Grid, City Hall Ave, to install underground facilities, install one pad-mounted transformer, and approximately 20 feet of conduit in the parking lot off Main Street and Pleasant Street, Gardner, Mass. The public hearing is now open. The public hearing notice reads as follows. Notice to abutters, October 24th, 2024. To abutters and other interested parties, pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 166, subsection 22, you are hereby notified that a public hearing will be conducted on Monday, November 4th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. on the petition of Massachusetts Electric Company, doing business as National Grid, for permission to erect and maintain poles and wires and be placed thereon together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as said companies may deem necessary in the public way or ways hereinafter referred to as requested in petition of said companies. City Hall Avenue, a petition by National Grid, City Hall Avenue, to install underground facilities, install one pad-mounted transformer and approximately 20 feet of conduit in the parking lot off Main Street and Pleasant Street in Gardner, Massachusetts. A sketch of the proposed pole location is attached for your edification. City Council of Gardner, T.T. Seraphan, City Clerk. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of the petition? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is a project that the administration has been working on with National Grid. This transformer is being installed in George Sweeney Park across the street from the Paramount Cafe. Many of the buildings downtown need upgraded electrical services in order to renovate the upper floors of these buildings. As such, they need a new transformer in order to be able to upgrade the electrical system. This transformer is mainly being used to feed 25 Main Street. Right now the building has enough electrical capacity to feed the new Bria Coffee that's being installed on the first floor, but does not have the electrical capacity to do the intended residential units on the upper floors. So that's what this transformer is being used for. However, unlike other transformers that be installed for purposes like this transformer is being maintained ownership by National Grid. The reason for that is that there's, like I said, several other properties in the downtown that are in a similar boat. So this transformer is actually fitted out to the size to be able to help 3 of the downtown buildings upgrade their electrical system so that we can go through that renovation process that we have planned. Really the only reason why a lot of the construction work on the buildings like the Garbos building at 210 Parker Street, the upper floors at 25 Main Street, and several of the other buildings downtown hasn't begun yet is because of this electrical holdup. So this will allow those projects to actually move forward and really retrofit out those buildings that, you know, we heard the plan for a while ago and everything's been on hold, and this is the hold that we've been waiting for. So that's why this is being put forward, and happy to answer any questions from what the administration has been working with National Grid on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone here present who'd like to speak in opposition of the petition? Is there anyone in opposition of the petition? Is there anyone in opposition of the petition? The public hearing is now closed. Item 11418, a measure to adopt a factor for real estate and personal property taxation for fiscal year 2025. The public hearing is now open. The public hearing notice reads as follows. Notice of FY 2025 tax classification hearing. Pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 56 of Mass General Laws, the Gardner City Council will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 4th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. in the Council Chamber, Room 219 at City Hall, 95 Pleasant Street, Gardner, Massachusetts. The purpose of the hearing is to determine the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of real estate. The hearing will include the options available under Chapter 40, Section 56 of the Massachusetts General Laws. The public is welcome to attend, posted to the city website on October 23rd, 2024. We will begin with a presentation from the mayor on the subject of the public hearing.
Thank you, Madam President and councilors. This is going to be the quickest way we'll get through the slides here. A lot of these slides that are included here are for informational purposes only, just because this is the first time we've actually took a deep dive into why we're suggesting the single tax rate for the city's options. It feels like every year I come up and refer to a bunch of PDFs and documents that are included in your packet without actually saying what those are for and why we do that. So we're just doing a quick overview. The presentation on the screens is really just for the quick referring back to those documents, so we don't have to keep turning back in the packet. But I do want to start by thanking our finance team with our city auditor, John Richard, Dan Jemick, our city treasurer, Christine Kumar, our city assessor, and Josh Cormier, our city purchasing director. We do meet on a monthly basis to go over the city's financial state, and we wouldn't be in as strong as a position as we are without their helps, and it's something that's really been helpful to me in the mayor's office. So thank you for two of them who are appointed by the city council, and they've really been really collaborative to work with. Just a quick run through. If you see these acronyms that come up, that's just how the classifications of taxation are coded in the DOR documents. The valuations, you'll hear that term brought out throughout. Valuations are the values of different properties in the city, and they're actually set from how the market was performing 2 calendar years prior. So all of the valuations you see being talked about for FY25 are things that were happening in 2023 in the real estate market, so houses for sale, that type of trends that you see there. That's how state law says we have to go back and value those properties. Those are all then certified by the state. And then every 5 years, we have to go back and reevaluate all of our properties with our data collectors. But that's all a process there too. So that's where our valuations come from themselves. So if you hear that, this is actually how the market was doing 2 years ago. And so everything that's happening now won't actually hit our tax bills or our tax processes for another 2 years. And then just your usual things that you hear at the tax hearing, the tax rates, the amount that's set per $1,000, the levies, the amount that we actually collect in taxes, the levy limits, the amount that we can collect in taxes, the levy ceiling is everything that we could. So that's your new growth. That's if we had any debt exclusions, that is if we had any overrides, all of that, plus the tax levy can go up to the levy ceiling. And any excess capacity is what we don't collect in taxes, but we could collect if we wanted to. We're going to get more into that. You'll see the numbers pop up later on, and it might be a little more clear. And then new growth that we've talked about, that's anything that we didn't plan when the budget was originally set. That's your additions onto properties, new properties that were built that received their certificate of occupancies by the time that after the time the budget was set, before the time the tax rate was set, that we can capture all of that in taxation now that the property's been finalized and that's moving forward. If we didn't have the supplemental budget that we had before, where we actually capture that into the budget, we wouldn't be able to capture that until the next year's budget. But by doing that supplemental budget, that now factors into all of our revenue factors for the upcoming fiscal year. So what we're actually here for today, the biggest question we get from the taxpayers is this the vote that sets the tax rate? And that's not the case. It determines how much of the tax rate is shared by our residential and open space properties and how much is shared by commercial, industrial, and personal properties. It's required to be done on an annual basis with either a single rate or a split rate, where you have to keep residential and open space together, and you have to keep commercial, industrial, and personal properties together. But it all determines, do you keep them at the same rate? Do you subsidize one rate with the other rate? And that's what the split tax rate was. And that's what the factor that you hear about at this hearing is how much of the percentage of our taxes that we collect is borne by our residential and our open space properties, and how much of that is borne by our commercial and industrial and personal properties. And there's several different options that we can choose from. There's the residential factor of 1. That's your single tax rate that everyone hears. Everyone's charged the same tax rate. But you can actually go through, and there's several different options determining how you shift that amount that goes towards your residential and open space or your commercial, industrial, and personal properties if you so choose to. You can charge more to your CIPs, or you can charge more to your ROs and basically subsidize one versus the other. And that's something that can be due. And just to note too, like the votes that we've had recently with the city charter changes and anything like that, this is also a vote that the council cannot override a mayoral veto on. It requires both mayoral approval and city council approval for that. Not that we've ever had that happen with this one, but again, just in transparency's sake and for the public who are watching, that's what the law sets forth. So single versus split tax rate. Your single tax rate, again, as we said, is basically just everyone pays the same. If the residential properties make up 80% of our assessed valuations, they're paying 80% of the taxes that we're collecting. And it's basically just you take everyone's percentage, and that's the amount that they're paying. In a split tax rate, it's a little different. Like as we said, you're subsidizing one versus the other. This law also does say how much that can happen. So if, say, 80% was residential and 20% was commercial, then they could only go up to 30%. So it does limit you on how much that change can be, because you can only go up to 1.5. So you do that 0.2 times 1.5, that's how you get that 30 that's there. This is all tax law fun, and I say fun very lightly. But just the purpose of this slide is basically so even if we wanted to shift it, we're capped at how much we can shift it at. And it's not like these decisions are made willy-nilly or just trying to say we've got a budget gap, let's fill it this way, and this is our quickest and easy way to do it. There's actual legal processes that we have to follow in any way that we choose to go forward. There are 3 exemptions we could do as well. Open space properties could be taxed, could be lowered in their tax rate by 25%. Residential, multifamily properties that are owner occupied could have their assessments lowered by up to 35%, or small commercial properties that have businesses of 10 people with an assessed value of less than $1 million could also have their taxes lowered. All of these would have to be approved by the council specific to the property themselves. Number 3 would then have to be approved by the state too for that commercial. We don't have any of these, but these are the options that are available to us. And then the biggest question that we get asked every year is, why are my taxes? I thought they could only go up 2.5% a year with the property. It's just a reminder that Proposition 2.5, when it was passed at the ballot, and as a ballot question in 1980, said that the amount of taxes, the total amount of taxes that we collect in every year cannot go up by more than 2.5%. And then that 2.5% of the total amount that's taken in is then divided up among the different properties based on their valuations that we've talked about earlier, are based on how comparable properties were selling 2 years prior in the real estate market. But because we're capped at how much we can collect annually by Proposition 2.5, our tax rate and our valuations have an inverse relationship, where if the valuations go up, the tax rate goes down, and vice versa. If the tax rate goes up, valuations will likely go down because we are capped. And if you have only so much room, if something fills up more of that space that you have, the other one shrinks, and that's just how that sliding scale works. And what we run into when we are in a good market where valuations are going up, tax rates are going down, is this anomaly in the tax bill laws, because valuations go in on the first day of the fiscal year. So come July 1st, our new property valuations are put into place. But state law also says that the new tax rate does not go into effect until the first day of the 3rd quarter of the fiscal year, because we have to close out the previous fiscal year, make sure we're in a good financial setting. So what this does is, for the first 2 bills of the fiscal year, because we do quarterly billing, the ones that are issued in July and the ones that are issued in October are called preliminary tax bills. And the reason for that is we don't have our actual tax rate yet. So we're using last year's tax rate in this year's valuations. If the market's doing slow, you don't really notice a difference. But when the market's taken off, like we have since the pandemic, you'll notice a larger amount paid up front until this new tax rate is set. And because the first 2, that's why, again, the first 2 quarters are your estimated bills, and the second 2 quarters are considered your actual tax bills. And you're actually subsidizing the second, your third and fourth quarter bills because of the way that the laws are set up when rates and valuations have to be put into effect. So to put this into visual perspective, you'd think on a quarterly basis you'd have 4 equal quarters, but in reality, it's actually something that looks more like this, where your first and second quarters are a lot larger than your third and fourth. So how does that affect us here in Gardner for the current fiscal year? As I said at the beginning, we are recommending a residential factor of 1 and a single tax rate as we have before. What's happened so far, the LA3 has been certified. That's our values from 2 years ago. DOR has said these are arm's length sales. That's good enough to determine comparable property values across the city. The LA4 has been certified. That's saying that based off of those comparable sales from the LA3, properties should be valued at this much, and they certify by the address that this and the type of property that that's how much those should be valued and assessed at. The LA13, that's our new growth, that's also certified and added to our revenue. The council adopted the supplemental budget at the last council meeting, and then free cash was also certified. What we have next to do is this hearing that we're in. After this hearing tomorrow, the city auditor and myself will go online on the state's Department of Revenue's website, upload everything that's happened here, sign off, and then the Department of Revenue sets the tax rate based off of the vote that's happened this evening, and then after that, the city treasurer's office issues our third and fourth quarter tax bills for the coming fiscal year. So where we lie in Gardner right now, the tax levy, that's the amount we're actually collecting in Gardner, that's $33.9 million in taxation. The excess capacity that you see there is what we could go up to in collecting taxes versus what we actually are. There's that difference of $19,389 that we could have raised in taxes, but we didn't need to in this year's budget. So that's our excess that's there. New growth came in at $32,951. That levy ceiling, that $59 million, that's one of those that if we had a debt exclusion, if we had an override, if we had something like that, then that levy limit of $33.9 million could not, plus all of those, could not exceed that $59 million. So that's really, that is, we really don't talk about the levy ceiling too often because we're likely never gonna hit it unless there's a lot of projects that happen that none of us are looking at doing right now, but that's what that number stands for. The real estate market in Gardner has been still pretty heavy right now. The average sale price, the median sale price in Gardner right now is about $415,000 for a single family home. As you can see, that has fluctuated. That's a 5-year timeline on the graph that's there showing the charts. There have been 9 homes in Gardner sold this year, which is a 55% drop from last year, mainly because we don't have the housing stock. And that's something that we're looking at doing right now is how much of these valuation increases and the market trends that we're seeing are simply because we don't have the housing stock. And is it a certain type of housing that we don't have that's causing this spike in the real estate market? Is it that we don't have enough senior housing? Is it that we don't have enough market rate? Is it we don't have enough affordable? And that's what we're looking at right now. And the average house in Gardner right now is selling at about 103.7% of its asking price that it's listed for. So it's something that we're seeing that number continue to go up. And if you look next to that, 88.9% of all houses on the market in Gardner over the last year went above asking price by that 103.7% on average. So it's something that we're still seeing this strong real estate market, even though we're hearing of the interest rates. While they did come down a little bit, they're still higher than they were. But the housing market in Gardner is still just as strong. And we're seeing it right now. If you look on a regional basis, we're beating everyone in the community but Leominster. Leominster is 0.5% higher than us, and Fitchburg's 3.6% lower than us. So it's one of those that I think we're third right now in the region for how this real estate market's going, again, behind Leominster and Lunenburg. So what our data is so far for the fiscal year and what's coming up today, it's based on an average single-family home assessed value of $340,779, an estimated tax rate of $14.37, which would equate to an estimated average single-family tax bill of $4,896.99. We say estimated because, again, as we said, the Department of Revenue is the one who has to set the tax rate, so we can guess what they're going to set it as. Right now, there's two options. It really looks like it's going to be $14.37 or $14.36. So for the purposes of the presentation, we use the higher number. Just if we're pleasantly surprised, we're pleasantly surprised. Right now, 84% of our properties in Gardner are residential properties, 8% are commercial, 4% are industrial, and 5% comes from personal property taxation. And these are the total valuations of a whole. So again, when we're setting that factor of what could change and what could not, you're not using the percentage of total property, you're using the percentage of the valuations of that property against the whole city. As we saw before in the letter I sent to the council, this is our new growth over the last just about 10 years. That big spike you saw in 2017, there's a industrial company over on Suffolk Lane called TerraFirm. They did a large new equipment purchase, which substantially increased our personal property taxation by about $350,000 in 2017. The reason that came down is that it was then built into our regular tax levy in the next year. So that's why you see that large spike that's there. And really the decrease that's there isn't that big of a decrease overall when you look at the grand scheme of things and the trends that we have over a 20-year outlook. But it really just looks like the real estate market's catching up to the demand, just because we don't have the supply and demand issue where we have the supply to meet the demand. Because we're running into that, I think with the interest rates, with inflation and everything, people aren't renovating their houses, but that doesn't mean the demand for those houses aren't there. So that's why even though our valuations are going up, new growth is going down, and just looking at the data is that we don't have that nexus that meets in the middle, because the demand is there, but people can't move out of the houses that they're living in, because then they have a hard time finding a new house to go into themselves. And it's one of those that kind of circles in that manner. But this is the amount of increase in valuations per type of property in the city. You'll see for the past couple years, our three-family houses have seen the biggest increase in valuation out of any other classification of property in the city. People are looking for apartments, and I think these people are coming up and buying up these three-family homes and knowing that they can get these tenants in these apartments. And we don't have that many available here in Gardner, and that's the other thing. So that, again, supply and demand situation, that's why our three families seem to be the biggest, followed pretty closely after by our 4+ unit families. That's something that I think is going to continue unless we find a way to build our housing stock that we have here in any sense of the term for either single-family apartment units or anything like that. We just don't have the supply to meet the demand that's there. Single-family home valuations, and this just personifies it even more, have gone up substantially over the last 10 years. We've only seen a 10% increase in our population in the same time period. And a lot of it's people moving out from the metropolitan Boston area and coming out to this area. But again, that demand is there. I think people are realizing now that you can buy a house on an acre of land in Gardner for what you can buy a brick for in Boston. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, as that cycle perpetuates and people come moving out here, our values go up because, again, the supply is down. And this just shows that correlation and inverse relationship that we talked about earlier. The blue line is our tax rate from 2014 to present. The orange line is our average single-family home valuation over the same period of time, and you can see they meet in the middle and then verge off by about that same amount there too. So you're always going to have that inverse effect there. Where they met in December of 2020 is really the nexus where the real estate market took off the most. And as someone who bought a house in that same time frame, it took me 38 offers before I got my house accepted. And it's because we had that such demand that was here in Gardner. So it's one of those things that I think is gonna continue for a little bit longer, at least until the market evens out. But you'll notice the trend downward in the tax rate and up in the valuations didn't begin when the pandemic began. This is actually This is something that began in 2017. And what happened with the pandemic and the interest rates dropping as a result of the pandemic just sped up the process. But this is something that we've seen for quite some time. This is in your packet, it's just so you can see the historical data that's there in terms of valuations and our tax rate. This is where we fall if you look at how much bills have increased, the tax rate, and those valuations. The blue bars are the valuations, the green line is the tax rate. The red bars are how much the average single-family tax bill has increased from year to year. This is the lowest amount an average single-family tax bill has increased from the previous fiscal year to the current by just under $5. Where if you notice last year it was around $268. And the reason for that is this, we have new revenue. We're able to do more in the budget than we were able to do without the revenue that we're now taking in from the meals tax, the hotels tax, our local receipts, things like that, that we're able to help supplement some of the budget funds that we would normally rely on taxation for. Aside from that, the market's trends that they're in right now, that's why the average single-family home in Gardner should see about a $5 increase from last year's tax bill to this year's tax bill. Just to make that a little clearer, because it was harder to see with the other stuff. This is the jumps that you've seen in increases each year in the average single-family tax bill in Gardner. This is where we fall currently with the other communities in north central Massachusetts. Right now, Gardner ranks 5th out of the 11 north central Mass communities. I should say this is all last year's data, including our bills and valuations and tax rate from last year, because we're the first of this group to hit the hearing. So this is something that maybe in February another letter will come to the council saying updated information where we fall after this is all done, but we can't predict where these communities will fall. But right now you see where Gardner falls amongst the communities in our region. We're required by law to show you the top 10 highest property taxpayers in the city of Gardner. The utilities are in gray. We throw those in because they're always going to be in the top 10 there. Number 3, just because that's a bunch of last names mixed together, that's Ridgewood Condominiums and all of the LLCs that jointly own Ridgewood Condominiums. And you can go down from there, and that's our top 10 highest taxpayers. So how does this fit here right now with the average single-family home bill? We talked about earlier how you're subsidizing because of the current tax rate and the way the market's in a strong upward trend. That first quarter bills and second quarter bills actually subsidize your third quarter bills and your fourth quarter bills because you're doing the new values with the old rate, and then you go to the new values and the new rate in January. The average single-family home in Gardner should see a reduction of about $105.64 from what they got in their October bill versus what they'll get in their January bill and their April bill, because the average single-family home in Gardner right now has paid about 52% of the taxes that they're annually going to be charged because the tax rate's going down. Because that valuation went up and the tax rate isn't going down until January, that's where you get this immediate drop because we're capped at how much we can collect in taxes. If we simply said just start the new rates and just continue going forward from there, we'd be going over Prop 2.5, and we'd be going over that 2.5% that we're legally allowed to collect. So that's why you'll see that drop. And how did this compare to last year? People should be seeing a reduction of a little greater than we saw last year, but pretty on par with how that's set up for this year. This was a new sheet included in the budget this year, but with the updated tax rate, I figured I'd also include that here. What this shows is the departments of the city, the percentage of the full city budget that department makes up, and then taking the average single-family tax bill of $4,889.99, taking the percentage of that and showing how much the average taxpayer in Gardner is paying towards the department in the city. If it's not on this list, then they contributed less than $25 a year to that department based off of their average tax bill. But you'll see the school department makes up 44.3% of the city's budget. 44.3% of the average single-family tax bill in Gardner is $2,170.39. So the average single-family home taxpayer in Gardner is paying about $2,100 towards the school department on an annual basis. That's what this shows here for the top departments in the city, going down to, again, everything under the building department paid less than $25 a year for the department that is listed there. The last trend that we've seen here, just for informational purposes, is the percentage of the average household income that we get from the census. The average household income in Gardner between 2015 and 2025 has gone up by just under 60%. The average single-family home valuation in Gardner has gone up by just over 114%. So right now, between what we anticipate a taxpayer is paying in their mortgage versus what we anticipate the taxpayers also then paying in taxes, they're paying about 21% of their annual income towards their houses that they have here. And that's again something that until we can find a way to grow our housing stock, that's really what that trend is gonna be like. We want that to go at least stabilized. I don't think it's gonna go down, unfortunately, but until those valuations get under control with that supply and demand issue that we have, that's really a trend that we're gonna see where you see in the last 10 years. There's been an increase of about 16, 17% of how much of a person's income is going towards paying for their house in both just mortgage costs and in taxation, let alone utilities and everything else that's associated with ownership of the house, and then everything that you have to buy with it. But because only 57% of the city owns the properties that they live in, we did a rental analysis view as well with the different rents in the city. This is also included in your packet just so you can have an apples comparison between the two there, with rents going up, across the different types of apartments that we have in the city. But this doesn't relate directly to taxation, but it's also good because that is 42% of the city's population right now, just to show what financial impact this may have on them and the rents that they pay. But what was also interesting is right now in the city, if you have a 3-bedroom apartment and compared how much you're paying annually off of your 12-month rent of $22,740 and go back to how much you're paying if you own a single-family house, based on the values that we have and the market trends we have, you're actually paying about $6,400 more to rent a 3-bedroom apartment in Gardner than to own a single-family house. But that's, again, because we don't have the apartment stock that we have for the demand that we have here. So these are the options for the different tax rate splits that we have based on all of that information that I just put forward. The administration is recommending a single tax rate. That's why that's highlighted there. And that's all of the reasons why, is that with everything that else is going on right now, the market being as high as it is, the trends in new growth in valuations that we're seeing, the way we're comparing to other communities, we don't want to shift any more onto our residential and open space owners. At the same time, we're at, I believe, since 2020, we're at 79 new businesses that have opened in the city. Even with the ones that have closed for one reason or another, we're still at a net gain of 67 in that same time period right now. I spent most of the afternoon on the phone with someone who's interested in the Garbos lot over on Timpani Boulevard today. I've spent most of the time recently cold calling with businesses who are interested in coming into Gardner. We've shown that we're open for business, so we don't want to shift any more onto our commercial, industrial, and personal property side and really close off that progress and positive trend that we've seen on our business side. So for all of those reasons, finally, that's why the administration is requesting a single tax rate at that $14.37 mark, just so we can have a stable financial plan moving forward for our residential properties that are seeing increases in valuations and for our commercial industrial properties that are coming in at a higher rate, hoping that we can help balance the amount of commercial, industrial, personal property taxes versus residential and open space property taxes that we have to get those more in the middle to even out what we're seeing financially. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of the petition?
I just had a question.
Sure, Councilman.
I just wanted to ask the mayor, I just want to go over, on slides 43 and 46, you mentioned, that the average increased tax bill, you said about $5. I just want to make sure that if we go to one, you're saying that the home valuation, the assessments are not scheduled to go up.
We've got the city assessor here, too. I don't know if we can say that. That's the average home. I want to say that now. The valuations have gone into effect as of July 1. So the valuations you see in the bill now will be your valuation for the fiscal year.
Okay.
There will be people, we have to reassess the valuations every year. So if any valuations change for something other than new growth, in terms of you added a deck or you did an upgrade to you added a new bathroom or something like that. Anything that will build your valuation mid-year, anything else wouldn't take effect until the next fiscal year when the new valuations are certified in that trend. Did I say that right, Chris?
That is correct.
Thank you.
I just want to make that clear. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments from the council? Okay, is there anyone here wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone present in favor? Is there anyone else present in favor? Is there anyone here in opposition? Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on the petition? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Thank you. Communications from the mayor, communications, item 11419, a measure authorizing the city to enter into a contract for up to 5 years for police department body camera cloud storage. Counselor Mack?
I make a motion to refer this to the finance committee.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Tyros to refer the item to the finance committee. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11420, a measure declaring surplus for the purpose of disposal of land and buildings at 73 Stewart Street. Counselor Mack?
I make a motion to refer this item to the finance committee.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Tyros to refer the item to the finance committee. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11421, a communication from the mayor regarding MedX health insurance rates for retirees. Counselor Mack?
I'd like to make a motion to place this communication on file.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Tyros to place the communication on file. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. Just like I did with the health insurance, and I've talked enough this meeting, so I'll keep this quick. We talked about comparing to other communities in the area. We did find out this morning that Fitchburg's rates went up about 18%, where ours is at 12. Fitchburg also does a 70-30 split, where we do a 75-25 split. So just to compare the rates we're seeing, we're pretty on par with what other communities in the region are seeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing as there isn't, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Ordinances, item 11422, an ordinance to amend the chapter 600 of the Code of the City of Gardner, thereof entitled Vehicles and Traffic. Counselor Cormier?
I'll make a motion to refer the item to the safety committee for study and report.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Cormier, seconded by Counselor Heath to refer the item to the Public Safety Committee for study and report. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Petitions, applications, communications, etc. Item 11423, a proposal relative to the rules of the City Council. Counselor Tyros?
Thank you, Madam President. I move to refer to the committee of the whole and to schedule an informal meeting to discuss this item.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Tyros, seconded by Counselor Mack to refer the item to the committee of the whole and schedule an informal meeting. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Reports of standing committees. Finance Committee, item 11289, an ordinance to amend the Code of the City of Gardner, Part 1 thereof entitled Administrative Legislation. Counselor Mack?
Councilors have received the 7th version of this item to review. The committee, the Finance Committee respectfully requests for more time, as there will be an informal meeting scheduled on this item very soon.
If there is no objection, the committee will be granted more time. The committee will be granted more time. Item 11407, a measure authorizing a 5-year contract for school transportation services. Counselor Mack?
This item was initiated by the school department to enter into a new school busing contract for 5-year services from FY 2026 to 2030. This is a 3+2 contract, which would allow an additional 2-year option by the mayor. The 2 years would not be binding. When we went through the budget for this past fiscal year, we were informed that to expect an increased cost for transportation. So this will allow the school department to seek more competitive rates in the bidding process. The committee was in favor, and I move the order.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Tyros to authorize the contract. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11408, an order accepting the provisions of Section 5N of Chapter 59 of the General Laws to establish a veteran property tax work-off program. Report from the Finance Committee, Counselor Mack.
This item is to have a veterans tax work-off program that would reflect our current senior tax work-off program, which allows a property tax reduction up to $1,000 a year. A veteran may not meet the current age requirement for the senior work-off program, but can apply for a property tax reduction as long as their primary resident is in Gardner for volunteering up to 68 hours of service to the city, which is aligned with a $15 minimum wage. There will be 10 spots for veterans to participate in this program, and there is a new application that will be used, and it will be the same application that is used for the senior tax work-off program, and will be available through the Human Resource Department. The committee was unanimously in favor, and I move the order.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Tassoni to adopt the order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11409, a communication from the mayor regarding the certification of FY 2024 free cash. Report from the Finance Committee, Counselor Mack.
I make a motion to place the communication on file.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Tyros to place the communication on file. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11410, a communication from the mayor regarding the certification of FY 2024 Enterprise Fund retained earnings. Report from the Finance Committee, Counselor Mack.
Thank you, Madam President. I make a motion to place the communication on file.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Mack, seconded by Counselor Tassoni to place the communication on file. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Appointments, item number 11414, a measure confirming the mayor's appointment of Paul Gage to the position of Historical Commission member for a term expiring October 16th, 2024. Counselor Tyros?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee respectfully requests more time.
If there is no objection, the committee will be granted more time. The committee will be granted more time. Safety Committee, item 11415, an ordinance to amend the Code of the City of Gardner, Chapter 477, thereof entitled Mobile Homes and Trailers. Counselor Craig Cormier.
Thank you, Madam President. The Safety Committee had a chance to meet on this item and discuss it with both the mayor and the chief of police. This item was brought forth by the police department to the administration in regards to the increase of mobile homes that are parking in areas that are not owned by homeowners in public ways and such. The issue that really concerns is mostly disposal of waste from these vehicles, as well as trash. It's really a health issue. So Deputy Chief Maroney drafted this order based on similar legislation from several other communities in the area to help alleviate this issue by keeping these RVs moving along. The committee was in favor unanimously of this, and I move to send the item to first printing.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Cormier, seconded by Counselor Heath to send the item to first printing. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 11416, an ordinance to amend the Code of the City of Gardner, Chapter 600, thereof entitled Vehicles and Traffic, to add a new Section 21 to be entitled Parking Meter Fees Waived. Counselor Cormier.
Thank you, Madam President. The city has begun to install new parking meters to replace all the ones that no longer work. This is expected to take the next several weeks, but since we usually traditionally waive parking meters through December anyway, they won't really become effective to collect until January. So the administration, Traffic Commission actually brought this forward to propose that anyone with a list of veteran and service member plates that are listed in the ordinance, once the meters start collecting, will have their fees waived from parking. They will still be obligated to the time limit by the meter, but they will not need to pay the fee. The committee was unanimously in favor, and I move the ordinance to first printing.
Motion made by Counselor Cormier, seconded by Counselor Hardern to send the item to first printing. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Service Committee, item 11385, a measure to grant National Grid an easement to install a transformer at 95 Pleasant Street. Counselor Tassoni?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to remove this from the calendar as we voted on this at our last meeting. And again, this was for the easement, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to have the public hearing here today.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Tassoni, seconded by Counselor Tyros to remove the item from the calendar. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 11417, a petition by National Grid, City Hall Avenue to install underground facilities, install one pad-mounted transformer and approximately 20 feet of conduit in the parking lot off Main Street and Pleasant Street, Gardner, Massachusetts. We did have a public hearing earlier on this item this evening. Counselor Tassoni?
Madam President, Public Service Committee would like to request more time on this item.
If there is no objection, the committee will be granted more time. The committee will be granted more time. Committee of the Whole, item 11418, a measure to adopt a factor for real estate and personal property taxation for fiscal year 2025. We also had a public hearing on this item earlier this evening and a presentation from the mayor. Is there a motion? Councillor Hegland?
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the residential factor for the real estate taxes be set at 1 for the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Hegland, seconded by Counselor Tyros, that the residential factor for real estate taxes be set at 1 for the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2024 and ending July 30th, 2025. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. There is no unfinished business and matters for reconsideration. There is no new business, council comments and remarks. Are there any council comments or remarks? Councilor Brooks.
Thank you, Madam President. So election day is finally here. I would, in case anybody had missed that. I would first like to thank all the folks in the city clerk's office for their dedication and hard work in putting together the 2024 election. The city is fortunate to have such a good staff and many other residents willing to spend a long day at the polling place tomorrow. Second, I would like to pass on a few things I learned while serving as an assistant registrar. There are a myriad of safeguards to prevent dishonesty and many checks and balances in place to assure that the end results are honest and accurate. First, the ballot boxes are tested prior to being deployed to each of the 10 precincts in the city. The city clerk's office fills out 50 ballots and then runs them into the ballot box to be sure they are counted properly. After deployment and before the polls open, the ballot box produces a printed tape showing all the names and questions on the ballot and showing that no votes have been cast. This beginning tape is posted in the polling place for the public to examine. When someone comes in to vote, they go to the inspector at the check-in table and announce their name and address. The inspector repeats the name and address, checks the name off the list, and hands the voter a ballot. After voting, the voter goes to the checkout table where they again state their name and address to the inspector, who checks their name off the list. The voter then places their ballot in the ballot box where it's tabulated. The inspectors also use the day to process mail-in, absentee, and early voting ballots. If someone comes into the polling place and tries to vote after having already voted by mail-in, absentee, or early voting, they will not be allowed to vote. Their name has already been checked off the list. When the polling place closes at the end of the election day, inspectors compare the counts on the two lists of voters with the count on the ballot box. The number, obviously, should be the same on all three. The warden then prints a tape from the ballot box showing the unofficial election results from that ballot box. The total votes cast on the report should again prove to the two lists. One copy of the printout is posted next to the tape printed at the start of the day. Another copy, along with the ballot box memory cards, are brought to the city clerk's office. The city clerk compiles the results from all precincts, checks to make sure that the results look correct, and then posts the unofficial results for the city. Ballots from each precinct are counted to be sure the number of ballots agree with the total from the lists of voters. They are then sealed in a box and returned by the police officer to the city clerk. The sealed box from each precinct is placed in a vault in case there are questions or recounts. The Board of Registrars reviews any conditional ballots and counts any late arriving overseas ballots. The city clerk has a couple of weeks to review the results and make sure it all proves. Only then does she send the official results to the Secretary of State. So is that it? Actually, no. Every 4 years, the Secretary of State selects random races and precincts from across the Commonwealth for an audit. An audit involves opening up the sealed ballot box and hand counting the ballots to assure that the votes were counted correctly. As an assistant registrar, I sat through an audit 4 years ago, and the city had no issues. Again, due to the dedication and hard work of the staff in the city clerk's office. Having seen how elections are conducted in this city, I have no doubt that the elections are accurate and honest. Since the city is following the rules set down by the Commonwealth, I have no doubt that elections in Massachusetts are accurate and honest. While other states may have different rules governing their elections, the process across all 50 states is similar. So I have confidence that tomorrow's election will be accurate and honest. In closing, if you have not already voted, make sure you go to the polls tomorrow. Voting is your right as an American. Voting is also your duty as an American. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Further council comments and remarks? Counselor Mack?
Yes, I just want to make sure that the Gardner citizens are aware that today on the City Hall website, on the Gardner Fire Department website, Chief LaGoy published a letter to all Gardner residents that there is an open fire ban currently going on due to the weather conditions. Any types of open outdoor fire pits, fires, open flames for cooking purposes, recreational or ornamental fires are banned until further notice. And this also includes burning brush and other yard debris. And there's a warning on here for people to please ensure that they are careful of disposing smoking materials and fully extinguish prior to disposal and use only non-combustible containers. Because we see what's going on in parts of our state, and I just think it forbears mentioning to our citizens that there is a ban on open flame fires. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Further council comments and remarks? I too just wanted to wish the city clerk's office and all the polling election workers well tomorrow. And I know it's a long day. You do great work, and we appreciate what you do for the council. So I wanted to wish you well tomorrow. There's no further council comments and remarks. I will entertain a motion to adjourn after closing prayer. Motion made by Councilor Brooks, seconded by Councilor Tassoni. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Almighty Father,
who sees over all, as we adjourn, we thank you for the opportunity to join deliberation and act as witness during the course of this meeting. Bless, O Lord, all who are gathered here, and the people whose representatives we are, and do thou attend to our common welfare until our next meeting.
Amen. Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.